we go on, we go. If you can hear this from the other side. Sweet land, sweet land of the weary and the wild. Oh, where are you, my sweet child? Gardens either dying or about to come alive. The river's either drying or it's deep enough to dive. Can't tell if it's the dusk or if it's breaking into dawn. Are we going on or are we going? Somebody said a storm is coming, but it's been a long time. I don't know what's up ahead, but please baby, don't you look behind. So tell me, is it gonna be free energy forever, or just the same damn old grind? Singing sweet land of the weary and the wild. Are we 1 year from the grave, or is this just the beginning? My sweet child, oh, you're my star-spangled fever dream. Half a savior, half a liar. 250 summers and we're going higher, singing sweet land, going. The neighbors might be coming with a casserole or a gun. The kids are either screaming or they're laughing in the sun. Is the timeline coming undone, or is it coming in clear? The fireworks are blinding, but I'll keep on dancing here. And nobody can promise me that we're gonna make it to the light. So is it an awakening, or is this a knife in the night? So come on, brother, sister, stand up tall, because guess what? Where we go on, we go. If you can hear this from the other side.
Okay, what'd you think of that song? I guess my chat is not hearing me.
No,
Hope you
please
guys
continue.
liked it.
Yeah, it is good.
That's Heavy Pulp on X. He used Grok for imaging. Grok gave him a shout out. I thought it was a beautiful song. So I decided to use it for my sound check, which was a good thing because I needed it. How is everybody? I'm gonna...
I love it. Better than Swifty. So much better than Swifty.
I am going to start off with a presser. This is the Q&A from the presser. Listen carefully to the whole thing because that's what this whole show is built around. But by the way, welcome everybody. I got Beth. I've got PL Baldry, Ann Boyer, Dar Family. Thank you all on Rumble. And over on Pilled, we've got Just Fed Up, gave me a ship already, and I didn't even get started yet. Thank you so much. Carrie Lake is over there on Pilled. So we don't have a whole large crowd. Danielle, thank you for joining me on Rumble. Of course, you can see on the screen that I've got my Telegram chat opened. We are praying there are no technical glitches today. So keep that in your prayers. Say a little bit more prayer. Anyway, I'm starting out with this presser. This is where Trump starts out with communism will never work. He goes through Iran being scum, and he ends up with, yeah, I'm the number one person on the kill list. So let me get this started. Get this to full screen. Here we go.
Times on communism. You've been issuing a wake-up call to Americans at home about the dangers of communism. And now you're speaking on the world stage. What's your message to people both living under communist and socialist regimes, but also people living under democracies like in Europe and America who might not have realized how close communism has come to home?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. But look, I want to get the word out because what's forming is communism in the country. And communism's easy to sell. I would be the greatest communist in history. I'd be right up there with Lenin. I'd be as good as anybody. You've got free rent for the rest of your life. What they don't say is that you'll be living in squalor in 12 months. You've got the free house. Would anybody like to have a free house? We'll take it away from somebody. We'll give it to you. You'll have murders all over the place. Communism's a disaster. It's been proven to be for thousands of years under different names, but same thing. It's very important. And, you know, it's funny. One of the reasons I do so well with Hispanic people, I set a record, Republicans. I get great numbers for the election, helped me get elected in a landslide, the Hispanics, because a lot of them came from countries that were essentially communist. You know, whether you call them radical socialists or communists is not that much, but there's a little difference. When they say social democrats, we're social democrats, it sounds so nice. It's not nice. It's a very dangerous term. So I do talk about it, and I talk about it on TikTok, and I talk about it everywhere. I talk about it here. And you're right, it has become international, but it's never worked, and it's not going to work. What is working is the United States. And think of it, we have more jobs than we've ever had. People are making more than they've ever made. I'm talking about workers now. I'm talking about workers. They're making higher salaries than they've ever made before. It's just the best. It's been amazing. And when I watch what's happening and I see these lowlifes getting, I mean, they're lowlifes. I watch them. I know good people. I know quality people. These are essentially lowlifes. And when I see what they're talking, I think they're very dangerous in many ways. And I've said it. And then I said, boy, that's a pretty big statement. Then I realized, you know, a couple of people said, I think you're probably right. I think this country, with this thing that's going around, is in more danger than it was during World War I, World War II. If you talk about September 11th, if you talk about Pearl Harbor, that was big danger. I think the concept of us going communist, because one thing that happens when you go communist, you never come back, never comes back. You die in squalor. You die a horrible death. You die in squalor, and it gets very evil and very nasty. Yeah, please go ahead.
You've been issuing a wake-up call to Americans at home about the dangers of communism. And now you're speaking on the world stage. What's your message to people both living under communist and socialist regimes, but also people living under democracies like in Europe and America who might not have realized how close communism has come to home?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. But look, I want to get the word out because what's forming is communism in the country. And communism's easy to sell. I would be the greatest communist in history. I'd be right up there with Lenin. I'd be as good as anybody. You've got free rent for the rest of your life. What they don't say is that you'll be living in squalor in 12 months. You've got the free house. Would anybody like to have a free house? We'll take it away from somebody. We'll give it to you. You'll have murders all over the place. Communism's a disaster. It's been proven to be for thousands of years under different names, but same thing. It's very important. And, you know, it's funny. One of the reasons I do so well with Hispanic people, I set a record, Republicans. I get great numbers for the election, helped me get elected in a landslide, the Hispanics, because a lot of them came from countries that were essentially communist. You know, whether you call them radical socialists or communists is not that much, but there's a little difference. When they say social democrats, we're social democrats, it sounds so nice. It's not nice. It's a very dangerous term. So I do talk about it, and I talk about it on TikTok, and I talk about it everywhere. I talk about it here. And you're right, it has become international, but it's never worked, and it's not going to work. What is working is the United States. I mean, think of it. We have more jobs than we've ever had. People are making more money than they've ever made. I'm talking about workers now. I'm talking about workers. They're making higher salaries than they've ever made before. It's just the best system, and it's got flaws, but everything's going to have a little flaw, but it's been amazing. And when I watch what's happening and I see these lowlifes getting, I mean, they're lowlifes. I watch them. I know good people. I know quality people. These are essentially lowlifes. And when I see what they're talking, I think they're very dangerous in many ways. And I've said it. And then I said, boy, that's a pretty big statement. Then I realized, a couple of people said, I think you're probably right. I think this country, with this thing that's going around, is in more danger than it was during World War I, World War II. If you talk about September 11th, if you talk about Pearl Harbor, that was big danger. I think the concept of us going communist, because one thing that happens when you go communist, you never come back, never comes back. You die in squalor. You die a horrible death. You die in squalor, and it gets very evil and very nasty. Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President, Tyler Pager with the New York Times. Last month you said Iranian leaders were very rational people, nice people to deal with, strong people, smart people. Today you said they were scum, sick people, and being led by sick people. What changed, and do you think they're
I got to know them. So I've said that about a lot. Now, when you say rational, I think they're much more rational than level 1, level 2. Level 1 is gone, level 2 is gone. This is level 3. I think they are more rational, but based on their actions over the last week or two, they're not doing a service to the people. And I think more than anything else is I got to know them. And I'm not sure I want to make a deal with them. We can play games, but I'm not sure I want to make a deal. Let's just finish the job. Yeah, please, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Steve Sedgwick from CNBC. The oil markets are up today, around about 7% for WTI and Brent as well. The world is taking you at your word, sir, that the MOU is over, that the ceasefire is over. What happens next, sir? Are we on the cusp of a full-scale return to full conflict?
I'll tell you what happens next. We're never going to see Iran have a nuclear weapon, because that's much more important than the numbers you're talking about. The prices of oil are dropping like a rock. Now they'll be up a little bit, and this will end very quickly. We have an oil glut right now because we got all those boats out of the strait, and it's going to drop, and I've predicted everything. I've been right about everything, and I have been for a long time. That's how I got to be president 3 times. That's how I won 3 elections. I did very well in the second one, won it. It was a rigged election, but I've been right, and oil's coming down. Now, I have to make sure of one thing, that we don't have lunatics having control over nuclear weapons. So we have that now. There's no way they have a nuclear weapon. We have cameras, as an example, on the site that those beautiful B-2s at 1 o'clock in the morning 10 months ago blew up. They blew it up. We have cameras, that's called Space Force, if they're in space. But we have cameras that can read the badge of the person going over to a site. Mohammed something. We say it's Mohammed something is there with shovels. Well, shovels won't get you there. The biggest machinery in the world probably won't get you there, if you want to know the truth. It's way, way below. But we're watching that. And if anybody goes there, they get blown up. So nobody's going to touch that. Eventually we'll take it. But what we do have is we have that. That's gone. If we wouldn't have had that, they would have had a nuclear weapon, and they would have wiped out Israel. If I weren't president, Israel wouldn't exist. And we did it 2 times. When the JCPOA, the Obama deal, when that was originally conceived, everything went to Iran. 1.7 billion in cash, hundreds of billions of dollars. They thought they could buy peace with these people. You can't do that. So the big thing we have is, more important than anything we can talk about, is you can't let lunatics have nuclear weapons. And we've stopped that. And that should have been stopped on a couple of other occasions, too, with different countries, but they didn't do that. Yeah, please.
Stephen Nelson from the New York Post. I'd like you to address speculation that you're leaving Ankara not in the new Air Force One because of security concerns involving Iran. You've spoken today twice about them possibly assassinating you and possibly being successful. Did that concern have something to do with
Well, I speak about it a lot because, you know, the life of a president is very dangerous. It's 5.2%. You know what a race car driver is? 1/10 of 1%. A bull rider, that looks pretty dangerous to me. It's 1/10 of 1%. No, it's 5.2% is you don't make it. You should have told me you're an excellent reporter. You should have told me that years ago. Maybe I wouldn't have run. It's a very dangerous profession. No, I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. I'm number one. So I don't know. I can't tell you that, but I don't really care because I'm doing my job and I'm doing it, I hope, better than anybody's ever done it because we have a country that's hot and really, really successful. But I mention it only because it's on the list. I mean, it came out. There was another list came out yesterday, and I'm number one on. I like being number one on TikTok better, but I'm number one on the list for killing. Well, thank you very.
That. Now try it.
Okay, you should be able to hear me fine now, right? Sorry, guys, I'm running too many chats. I don't know that my idea here. They're saying I'm muted. Okay, so I'm not. Okay, so this is from the White House press pool. You know, they have to be with the president at all times. Asked about why he's leaving Ankara on the old Air Force One, security concerns in light of past assassination attempts. Well, I speak about it a lot because, you know, the life of a president is very dangerous. You should have told me that years ago. It's rhetoric. Everybody wouldn't have run. It's a very dangerous profession. No, I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. He added that the plane is going to Europe, where we can show it to the people, meaning his military, and we'll be going home by normal methods, but we have it going to Europe to a couple of bases. My husband is talking to me in the background, and I can hardly hear him, so please forgive me for the disruption. Okay. But we have it going to Europe to a couple of bases, actually one in particular, but it's going to go to a couple of bases so the soldiers can see it. And then he talks about being the countries that didn't help. He's talking about Spain, which, by the way, is a socialist parliament. But, you know, the Italy has been good. And almost all of the countries have been very good. They just had a bad moment. They didn't help us. Now he is at a NATO summit. He's asking if he and Erdogan made an agreement. They're talking about F-35s, and it's the best plane. Okay, so let me just point out something else. Their update a few minutes later was, we arrived in Ankara. We are boarding the old big plane, no eyes on POTUS, no underwing gaggle, which is unusual. So they're getting on a different plane, and don't have POTUS in sight. Then they got on the plane and they were told to keep their cabin shades down. See you on the other side. So in other words, there is a security threat. It was in Ankara. What's interesting is they're going to Mildenhall Air Force Base in the UK. So he's getting on the old Air Force One here, and he's heading, the new plane is heading to Mildenhall. I did a little searching. He says, to our brave men and women of the military, we are sending the brand new and truly spectacular Air Force One to Mildenhall Air Force Base in the United Kingdom to give them a chance to tour the aircraft. Everybody's so excited, and we thought that they should be first. For old time's sake, we'll be taking the former Air Force One from Turkey to Mildenhall, a short trip that is totally worth doing in order to give our great military heroes a chance to appreciate our beautiful new addition to the Air Force fleet, President Donald Trump. Awfully odd, very odd. So I did a little digging. We have a partnership with the UK, with MI6 explicitly, on AI and cyber. Oh, Just Fed Up is saying there were explosions at the hotel Macron was staying at just after he left for Ankara. Interesting. So in AFRL, which is here in the United States, we have a joint relationship with the UK. Where is that joint relationship? It's with MI6. Where is that? Well, it's not at Mildenhall. So I did a little bit of digging. It's RAF Menworth Hill. He said, and other bases. He's not mentioning it. While it is legally an RAF base, it acts as a massive global hub for signals intelligence and electronic tracking, heavily utilized by the U.S. National Security Agency, specialized military units. What's interesting is the role is operational for defense intelligence. It's co-located with cyber and AI tech hubs. So I'm wondering if the software on the plane has an AI piece to it that was a, quote, poison pill, poison data. So while Trump did say at other bases, why is Trump going to Mildenhall? It was an interesting response. The official reason was for everybody to look at. The unofficial, security fears and Iranian threats. While the new plane went ahead to Mildenhall for display, Trump notably refused to fly out of Turkey on it, opting instead to fly to Mildenhall on the older plane. When pressed by reporters about whether the sudden aircraft swap was due to an active security threat, Trump deflected but openly acknowledged the dangers. So there's something to do with that plane. So remember, we got the gift of the plane from Qatar. It was retrofitted, put into service, and now he's refusing to leave Ankara on that plane. So there's something wrong with that plane. I believe it's getting a full sweep. I don't know what it is. Please pray for our president. Anybody have any thoughts or comments on that? I guess not. Anybody in the
Yes, yeah. I had to hit the button. When I saw this earlier, and they said that the press pool was going to have to close their windows, close the shades on them, and obviously they don't have Wi-Fi. I thought it had to do with lasers, you know.
No, I'm going to take you back. Remember when Trump made that surprise visit to Iraq? They went in on Thanksgiving. They had to close their shades so no light would shine out. Remember?
Yes, I do.
So the reason why I'm saying this is there was an active threat. It's interesting that he refused to get on the new Air Force One, took the old one out of Ankara, and that the press pool was told, close your shades. I find that interesting. Stated that Trump will have another assassination attempt on his life. So Alan just said over on Rumble that prophet Deanna Larkin on Rumble today stated that Trump will have another assassination attempt on his life. That's interesting. Please pray. And Curious Cat says, when in doubt, throw it out. I agree. There's something going on. Was the press pool on the new plane? No, they're on a separate plane. But they were told when they, remember the press pool report was that they were wheels up. There was no gaggle under POTUS's plane, and they had no eyes on POTUS. They're on a different plane. And so they were commenting, like I said, that advised to keep our window shades in the press cabin closed. See you on the other side. So there is concern. I'm pretty sure, Zippeldot, you're right, that they flew dark out of Turkey. They've also got the press plane flying dark out of Turkey. It's interesting that he refused to get on the new plane. So Alan just dropped the podcast. I'm putting it over. Evidently, this is a prophecy that's saying that Trump will have another assassination attempt on his life. I would like to know what time she put that out, Ellen, because the press gaggle, even though we got it later, the press gaggle is many hours before we are. So just going to keep that in mind. So now that you know what's sitting in London waiting for that plane, and he said other bases, just keep that in mind and prayers up. Now, this one is my favorite, if you don't mind. I'm going to play this presser. This one is, I think, 30 minutes long. Let me see. 38 minutes. There's a lot of information in this one, so settle in. I'm going to mute my camera again, but settle in and listen to this.
Special. And I will say that what they've done with Turkey and President Erdogan has been a friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. Strong man, good man, and he's done a fantastic job. Every road, everything's perfect. He's from the airport to the destination, everything's been perfect. So we had a really good meeting, and we thought this would be a good time for President Zelensky and I to meet, and we'll see what we can do. But we've actually developed a good relationship. It's hard to believe, right?
All right, this feels almost illegal to know, but our windows were so
sorry
old
about that.
and
Hold
just
on.
desperately needed to be replaced. So I called a few contractors, but they all quoted me a hefty $10,000 or
From the Oval Office to now, I think we've developed a very good relationship. And
this is not the end.
no, this is going to be the beginning, maybe.
Isn't it interesting he's sitting there with Zelensky?
And you know, the
I got
country
more
has
on
a
that.
lot of future. It is such great land, such great assets, such great people. And you have a lot of people. I was with a group in Poland, and you have a lot of people in Poland, and which is a terrific country with a really great president. I happen to endorse him, and he's doing a very good job. And they were saying they love Poland, but they really want to go back. You know, you're going to get a lot of people back when this is over. They left some, and they're all. I think they're going to come back.
Okay, I know that this isn't a popular opinion of mine, but we've been following Ukraine from the beginning. We knew that the special operation from day one was about, quote, denazifying Ukraine. We also knew that Zelensky was a part of doing that. So there actually, even though it's been couched as a war, it's actually been the effort to get rid of the Nazis that are left over in southeastern Ukraine, in particular in the Donbass and surrounding regions. So when Trump sits here on a presser and equates Pearl Harbor and 9/11, both communist issues, as he's talking about the scourge of communism, and you're seeing Zelensky sitting there in the chair next to Trump as he's talking about all of this. I find it fascinating that Zelensky, who's not a part of NATO, is there talking to all of these members. So something's going on. I don't know what it is, but keep your eyes open. But also, isn't that a pretty gold tie? Isn't that a pretty tie? Thank you, Dixie, for the shades. Thank you so much.
A big percentage are going to come back. So they're going to come back. A big percentage are going to come back. So we're going to have a good talk, and we're going to see how it all goes. And Mr. President, would you like to say something?
Thanks so much, Mr. President. Thank you very much for this meeting, and we're very thankful, as always, to your support, American support, bipartisan support. Thanks for the invitation to this summit, and I think that I agree with you. We have a lot what to discuss and what to speak about, and of course we are thankful for the Pearl program, and we want to share with you some details what we want to raise during our meeting. Air defense is the priority. The second point, or maybe the first, about negotiations. I think, yes, we understand what to do. It's our estimation what to do, how to bring this, and I hope that you will do, I'm sure that you will do everything to stop this war. Yeah, and I'm very happy that our side began to work on drone deal, and it's very good beginning, and I hope that today I will have possibility to also to discuss with you some very important details. Thank you so much.
Well, we've settled a lot of wars, and this one is the one that I thought maybe would be the easiest. But Putin's a difficult character, and this guy's a difficult character. It's not the easiest thing, and there's a lot of commitment, and there's a lot of love of the countries and everything else. But I think we've made a lot of progress in the last couple of weeks, and we'll see how it all goes. So, do you have any questions?
President Trump, sir. President Trump. With the Iran ceasefire possibly over, can we expect the resumption of full-scale hostilities?
They are behaving very badly, as they have for 47 years. And, we hit them hard last night after they launched a couple of, you don't have to know about this, you got stuff on your mind, but they launched a couple of drones and one rocket, one missile, and at ships, because they were in the strait, which they have every right to be. And so we hit them very hard last night, very, very hard. Probably hit them hard again tonight. I'll give them a little warning, we're going to hit them hard tonight. But we'll see how it all works out. No, I'm not happy with them. It's like, for instance, we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about the denuclearization of Iran, because that's what the war is. It's not a war, it's really the denuclearization of Iran. And we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about just that. That's because my whole thing is not about regime change. It's not about, although I think it's regime change when you knock out the first group, the second group, and now you're the, I think that's maybe the ultimate regime change. But that's not what it's about. It's about, we don't want them to have nuclear weapons, and it's denuking or denuclearization. And I think we've made a lot of progress. And they'll get out of the room. We'll talk about it like we're here. They'll agree on everything, and then they'll go and have a news conference and say we never even talked about it. They're cuckoo. There's something wrong with these people. And for 47 years, they've been the bully of the Middle East, and they're not the bully anymore. They're not the bully anymore. And all we want, it's very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. That's what I'm there for.
President Trump, sir. President Trump.
If they did, they'd use it, and we're not going to let that
President
happen.
Trump, sir.
Daniel?
You've made a career making deals in very challenging situations. Speaking to President Zelensky, speaking to President Putin, in your view, sir, what is the most pragmatic pathway forward to finding
Oh, wow, we're being Ramboed.
Make a deal. Look,
Thank you guys for joining
this
us.
deal has been in the works for a long time. It's got the pluses, the minuses. They know what it is. He knows what it is better than anybody. And I just think it's sometimes, I used an analogy, and it sounds simple, but it's sort of true. You have two kids in a park, and they don't like each other, and they start fighting. Sometimes you have to let them fight, let them see that it's tough. It's tough. Fighting is tough.
This is horrible. Missing teeth causes a range
Give me a
of different
second.
problems.
And he's done an amazing job. Look, he's been very effective. Now he's had the best equipment because he's had our equipment, and he's had great. But somebody has to use that equipment, and you have a lot of brave people that are using that equipment. And Russia, you know, it's a big country, but it's a big force. Russia's always been a big fighting force, so you know it's. But I really believe it's ready. It's very interesting because you'd almost say it's worse than ever, and maybe it isn't. Sometimes with war, and you study war, and I've studied it so long, for years, long before I did this, sometimes it's when it gets the worst. And I don't know that it's the worst right now. It's consistently bad. They lost 25,000 people were lost, kids, young people, last month. And we had a month, 35 2 months ago. And I would say more Russians. But it's just, they're people. They're people. And there's actually very little difference between the people. I mean, you know, it's like the Russians and Ukrainian people. And they can get along, but it's a nasty war. Thousands and thousands, mostly soldiers, are being killed. The battlefields, I see pictures and it's horrible. He thinks it's horrible. We all think it's horrible. And the president wants to get it done, and I believe that President Putin wants to get it done, and that should be a good combination. Thank you.
Mr. President, what is your assessment on Ukraine's strike on Russian oil refineries and military factories?
Where are you from?
Ukraine.
Phrase the question differently, please.
Ukraine delivered strikes on Russian military factories and on oil refineries, and they ran out of gas.
Marco, why don't you answer that? Because you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, no, I think what you're discussing is the ability of Ukraine to reach deep inside of Russia and conduct strikes. Sure. I think that's one of the dynamics that's changed in this war over the last few months, and that is that Russians are finding it more difficult to defend their own airspace. And what we hope that means is that it's going to create the space now to negotiate the end of this war.
It's an escalation, but it's also an escalation that can help lead to an end. And,
Mr. President, you thinking that Mr. Putin might be seeking for the settlement?
So where are you from?
Radio Free Europe's Ukrainian service. I'm from Ukraine.
Okay, good. Because I talked to him. I talked to him. I talked to President Zelensky, and I think that's all I've done. My whole life I made deals. That's, I guess, becoming president was making a deal, right? It was like a lot of little individual things. In the end, it's making a deal. And that's what I do. And I do it well, and I know when people want to make a deal. I think he wants to make a deal. And I do feel that President Zelensky would like to get back to rebuilding his country as opposed to, you know, having all of this death and destruction. Ukraine has tremendous potential. He understands that. We talk about that. He talks about that more than he talks about the war. You know, to me, I think you might find that more exciting than the war. It's brutal. The other's the beauty of it. You know, I think he'll build a great country. I think he's going to build it. We have a little stake in that country now because we have some land in that country, but we have minerals. It's among the wealthiest. It's among the best land anywhere in the world for rare earth. And we have some rare earth. I look forward to.
By the way, the rare earth largely is down in the Donbass region, which was controlled by Nazis. Just going to point it out.
Taking advantage of it at the right time.
Mr. President, Europe to make Patriot missiles in Europe.
He's one of my favorite soldiers. I see him. He's central casting. Right? You doing okay?
Yes.
We see him at meetings. He's good. He's done a great job. Great job.
Trying to do our best.
Yeah. Great hero, actually.
Mr. President, will you allow Europe to make Patriot interceptors in Europe? Are you comfortable with licensing that technology?
About what?
Patriot interceptors to be made in Europe.
And you're talking with respect to Ukraine. Well, we're going to talk about that. You know, look, it's a defensive weapon, which I like, better than an offensive weapon. It's the best. So I was saying we have an aircraft carrier, which is one of the most beautiful in the world. It's one of the biggest, the Abraham Lincoln. And 2 months ago, we had 100, I told this story yesterday, we had 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan. They were shot at the aircraft carrier over a period of about 1 hour. 111 missiles going to a very expensive ship, and every one of those missiles was knocked down. Pretty much most by Patriots, but by other means also, as you know.
Yeah.
Other less expensive means. It's even better when you do that. But out of the 111 missiles, every one of them was shot down. It didn't hit the ship, and bad things happen, right, when that happens. So think of that, over a period of 1 hour.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay, you ready? All right, $118 for
I hate
car
YouTube.
insurance. That's how much I was paying, okay? I picked up the...
These missiles are coming at you, and every one of them shot down. So I think one of the things we're going to be talking about is, as you know, the companies, we have great power over the companies. Those companies that make the Patriot and make all of the great stuff, the Tomahawks, all of the great stuff. We have the best stuff. Many things. The Patriot's great, but we have many, many great things. You see that with Venezuela. You see it with Iran. Look, Iran has been wiped out. Iran, their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, everything's gone. But one of the things I think we're going to be talking about today, a little birdie told me this, about the fact that we'll give them the right to make Patriots. We'll show them how to do it. It's very complex, actually, but it's you'll figure out the complexity quickly. And we're talking about that, and the company that makes them, which is building now 4 plants, all of our companies will be able to do this in 2 to 3 months. If you order a Patriot, now you have to wait a long time for them. Same thing with Tomahawks. We have a lot of certain equipment, but with they call it the elite equipment, and you don't need elite equipment necessarily for a war. But so one of the things we're going to be talking about is we're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right? This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough. I say make them yourself. We haven't informed the company of that yet, but that'll work out all right. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. But they'll be able to do it. You'll be able to figure that out. Most countries couldn't do that. Yeah. If I said that to most countries, they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But this is a very ingenious group, and what I like about that, it's a defensive situation as opposed to an offensive. But I think one of the things you might want to be talking about is that. That's what I heard. Little birdie told me that.
On Iran, can you clarify, does the end of the ceasefire mean that we are back to a full-scale military conflict?
Look, they violate the agreement every day. They lie, they cheat, they kill people. They've been killing people for 47 years. They knocked out the SS Cole. We lost, 200 people more. That was a long time ago. For 47 years, no president did anything about that. Well, Obama actually gave them vast amounts of money. You'd like this. He gave them a plane load of money, $1.7 billion in green cash. They loaded up a Boeing 757. Remember the old 750? It was a beautiful plane loaded up with cash. They took all the seats out, and they took all of the cash from Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. banks. They had no money. They took every ounce of cash, put it in, flew it to Iran, and gave them the money. I wonder what these guys thought of when the door opened and cash fell out of this big plane, beautiful plane. And then on top of that, they gave them billions and billions of dollars. And by the way, they gave it to the wrong country, frankly. You want to know the truth. And it began. That was pretty much the Obama deal. That was one of the worst tragedies that happened. That's what happened in the Middle East. That deal set back that whole situation. They went with, frankly, they picked the wrong country. They picked the wrong country. POC. What a terrible deal. I call it the Obama nuclear waste deal. because what he did with that deal is he caused tremendous hardship in the Middle East. It was a terrible, terrible thing to do. And we've been just the opposite. Our deal is a wall to a nuclear weapon. His deal was a road to a nuclear weapon. They'll never build a nuclear weapon under our deal, but I don't know if we're going to have a deal. We may just do it without a deal, because you know what? It's easier. Because these people, they lie and they cheat, and you have an agreement, and they'll go outside. For instance, they agreed, well, we'll never have a nuclear weapon. They agreed. Then they go outside, they have a news conference, or they leak that we never discussed the subject. Now, who would believe we never discussed the subject? Because for me, that's 99.9% of what we're doing. It's denuclearization of Iran, okay? So when you ask, our guys can continue. You know, Steve is great, and Jared, and all the guys. They know him very well. Yeah, actually, they're working on your stuff, too. I wonder which. I picked 2 beauties. You know what? We settled 8 wars. I got a couple of beauties here. But Steve's great, and Jared's great. You know, they're the right guys. And we'll see what happens. But I will say this. Iran, they've misbehaved for 47 years. They've killed our soldiers, they've killed our people, and they've killed a lot of people all over the Middle East and elsewhere. And the roadside bomb was their preferred, you know, the preferred weapon was by Soleimani, the roadside bomb, where it would explode under a truck. We actually built trucks with floors, steel this thick. And then all they did was they made bigger bombs. And we have young guys around, not walking around because they have no legs, but their legs were blown off, their arms were blown off, their face was blown off, and they live because of modern medicine. You can do anything, but they're living like in hell. Their whole life changed because of Iran. And that was 96% of the people that used that, they were made in Iran. And so...
Across Virginia, Amazon offers hourly employees health
yes,
care
I'm
on
from
day
Virginia,
one.
guys.
We have a score to settle, too.
Mr. President, you say that President Putin is ready to finish this war. What if he doesn't? Are you ready to put pressure on Russia? Are you ready to
we
put
have a
more
lot
sanctions?
of pressure. We have a lot of pressure on President Putin. You know, I don't think he likes what's going on. I don't think he's thrilled with what's happening.
Love the double speak.
President Putin to get it done. I think there's pressure on everybody to get that one done. A lot of pressure.
Mr. President, what's your security guarantee for Ukraine?
The guarantee?
Yeah, security guarantee for Ukraine.
The security guarantee you're talking about? I mean, not that we want to do it. We'll do it to save lives. Look, Ukraine's very far away. We have an ocean separating us. What I'm doing is I'm trying to save lives. A lot of lives are being lost. I also think that it's a country with great potential. I think if this kind of brain power can go toward rebuilding the country instead of fighting a war, I think that country is going to do fantastically well. And likewise, Russia, you know, look, they're devoting a lot of energy. Do you have a question for President Putin, please?
Did you just catch it? He called Zelensky President Putin.
I have a question for President Putin, not Zelensky. Putin. Yeah, what would you like to ask him? Because I'm going to ask him that question.
I have a question. Last year you called Russia a paper tiger, referring that they're not doing that.
Who did I call?
I'm from Telegraph UA, Ukrainian media.
No, give us a question, not for Zelensky. Give us a question for Putin. Because I'm speaking to him today.
Yeah.
Putin,
Why is it a good, hard question?
When will he end this war?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever asked him that question. I'm going to ask him that question.
Mr. President, what's the status of a drone deal between the U.S. and Ukraine? What's the status?
By the way, I will tell you, though, he's going to tell you that he wants it ended as soon as he can end it. He wants it ended. He wants to end it soon. And I ask him, and we talk. I talk to him a lot. I talk to him a little bit less, but the relationship is very good. But I talked to President Putin a lot. He wants to end the war.
Mr. President,
a lot of people don't believe that.
Doesn't he want the status of a deal between Ukraine? What are President Putin's conditions for ending the war? Do you know what?
Well, they were certain conditions that were a little bit different. I think they're changing. I think they're probably getting a little bit better toward some of the things that you'd like. It's been tougher in Russia. It's been a lot tougher than it was supposed to be. I mean, in all fairness, this was supposed to be this is a war that would have never happened if I were president. Would have never happened. You'd have a full country, you know. I mean, just a shame that it happened. But no, this is something that I think Zelensky wants to do and Putin wants to do. They want to get it done. Ask the president that question. Ask him.
Пане президенте, ви знаєте, на яких зараз умовах Володимир Путін готовий завершувати війну в Україні? Чи ж вони змінилися?
No, I don't know what I don't know what conditions Putin now wants for this peace. So I think that they are changing in any way, because at the very beginning of full-scale war, he was stronger, and now I think he is losing initiative on the battlefield. I think his army, but that's why I think that because of technologies, because it's not the question now of number of people. People, our heroic people, are very important. But now it's not the question of only number of people. First of all, people and technologies. People with technologies. Now I think that we have better steps, technological steps further than Russia, maybe quicker. Because you know that they produce a lot of different things which are tough, strong against us, but we are quicker. And that's why I think that now initiative moved to our hands. Not totally, but moved. We are trying to move this war to the sky from the battlefield. That's why we now began to control the battlefield. This is very important. It's difficult when you have less people to move them back, but we found another way how to do it, to cut their logistic for their army. It's about weapon, petrol, diesel, without massive human losses. That is the difference between us, by the way. Russia is, I mean, this
He's got a lot of support. I just left a room with, where they have, I mean, mostly European, you have Canada, but mostly European countries. And they have great support for Ukraine, and really great support. One of the things you talk about questions for Putin, but one of the things that I talked to him about was where would you want to meet? And he said ideally in Moscow. I said you're not going to meet in Moscow. It just doesn't work. You can't do that. But he'll meet, and Zelensky's going to meet. And something's going to happen that's going to be positive. And I hope it's going to happen soon, because they have to, number one, lives, but number two, building your country, because it's got a tremendous future, in my opinion. Yeah.
Where would it be held, and when would that happen?
I don't know.
Mr. President.
President Putin said, I would love to meet in Moscow. And I said, I don't think, I have to put myself in his position. I don't know that he'd go to Moscow. Maybe he would. Would you go to Moscow?
It's difficult. There are a lot of Ukrainian drones there. That's right. It's dangerous.
He doesn't want to be hit by a drone.
Europe.
No, it's hard. It's hard to go to Moscow.
Mr. President, how to
ask him that question.
Mr. President, how to ensure that Ukraine will not be attacked again by Russia?
What about?
How to make sure that Ukraine will not be attacked by Russia again?
Look, you mean in the future?
Yes.
You mean after there's an agreement? Well, we're going to work on a security guarantee and Russia respects us a lot, and we're going to work on some kind of a security. If we can make the right deal, we'll help Europe. I mean, Europe is going to be watching it, but we're going to be helping them, and we'll work on some kind of a security package that will make sure. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that if we make a deal, Russia is going to be very happy, and they're going to get on with other things. They have, by the way, as a country too, they have tremendous potential. They have tremendous land, valuable land that they can do things with. And They have tremendous potential, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't see that question is, oh, they're going to attack again. I don't see it at all. I think they've had it. This has been going on for almost 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? I mean, it's a tribute because it's a bigger country, strong country, and it's an amazing tribute. Anything else?
With the Patriot missiles, President Zelensky has said that Ukraine needs Patriot missiles now. Over 50 Ukrainians have died in recent airstrikes just in the last few days. So in addition to these production licenses, which will take time, would you consider Would you consider providing any to Ukraine immediately?
We have Patriots, but we don't have that many. We need them for ourselves too, you know. Some, but I think they can produce them pretty quickly. Once we explain it, we'll bring the company here. They'll work with the company. They have a great ability to produce weapons, pretty complex weapons.
Will you go to Ukraine?
President, do you have any deadline?
Will you go to Ukraine?
I would, yeah.
Do you have any deadline when you want to reach
I'd rather have the war be over.
When will it happen? Do you have any deadline?
I'm not sure Secret Service would be thrilled.
Are you willing to
Putin doesn't stop. I think the people are incredible. And, I mean, like Kiev, it would be nice to get it before any more damage is done, to be honest. It's such a beautiful city, right? And, yeah, I would go to Ukraine at the right time.
Do you have any deadline? When you want to reach a deal between Ukraine and Russia? Do you have any deadline in that regard?
No, I don't have a deadline. You can't have a deadline. It's it's too much going on. But I think you're going to have a deal. I think I've been very good. We had certain deals like Azerbaijan and some of the deals that we made, and they've been going on for 32 years. And they said it's an impossible thing to get them solved. Eight different deals. Even in the Congo, it was. Think of it. You have the Congo.
Thank you, P-Quest, for the cookie.
That was 14 million people dead, a lot of them with machetes. It's a horror. We got that one solved, or it flares up every once in a while, I must say. But we got deals done that weren't doable. But if you look at India and Pakistan, they were at it. We get that. We get them done, and when we get them done, I find that people are not anxious to go back into it. I think we'll have you once mentioned the word security guarantee in the Oval Office. So. Yep. And, I think they're going to need some kind of a security guarantee, but we're going to work with them. That's important. I think he thinks that's a very important thing. Yeah?
The security guarantees are very important.
And they'll live by it.
Partially, the President said about Patriots and licenses. The Patriot system is the best, in the world for today. The best anti-ballistic system. So we used a lot of...
That's the best.
Yeah, the best one. And checked everything during the war. So this is true. So with all respect to other partners, we are thankful for all the systems.
Well, they had different systems in Venezuela. Yeah. So Venezuela had systems that didn't work. Yeah. We didn't have one plane shot down. We didn't have one. We had one helicopter operator who was incredible. He landed it perfectly, and his leg was almost blown off. And we gave him the Congressional Medal of Honor because very few people could have landed that. You land them with your feet, really, more than anything else. And he landed it. He was really in bad shape. And at the State of the Union, we gave him. He was a handsome guy, big handsome guy, but we gave him the Congressional Medal of Honor at the State of the Union. So, look. He wants to get it done, and we're going to get it done.
What's the status on a drone deal between Ukraine and the U.S.?
And what's that?
What's the status of a drone deal between Ukraine and the U.S.?
Well, we would buy their drones, and we make drones. We make great drones, but they have an ability to make a lot of them, which is, right, Marco, amazing that in a war situation, they make them. They make them in basements. They make them wherever the hell you have a little shelter, even if you don't have shelter, I suspect, right? It's an amazing ability. Very few. Well, that's why I say with the Patriots, they would be able to do it. Most countries would not be able. They don't have the talent. You have very talented people. So, I think we're going to make that deal. If we made that deal, we'd have great protection. I love the protection. Think if you had a lot of Patriots, you wouldn't you'd never be hit. And as an example, in Kiev, where they get hit with missiles, those missiles, like what I said about the Abraham Lincoln, the missiles would be shot down. Yeah. So, and I think you'd start making them pretty quickly. Right? You like the idea?
No, it's a great idea.
I think everybody likes that one.
As part of security guarantees, are you ready to close the skies in case Russia attacks again?
Close what?
To close the skies over Ukraine in case Russia.
It's been
As a part of security guarantees, are you ready to impose a no-fly?
If it's necessary, yeah. I mean, look, I tell you, when we have a deal, we're going to have a deal. Security guarantee or no security guarantee. If we have a deal, we're going to have a deal. We're not going to have to worry about what you're saying. We're going to have a deal. I think if we come to a solution, which I think we will, we're going to have a deal. Now,
thank you so much, Just Fed Up. You just bought a bronze tier subscription.
I'm sure it will. I'm not sure it will with Iran. If we make a deal with Iran, I'm not sure that will stick.
May I ask you, what does your...
Because I found them to be very dishonorable people. Yeah.
Are you going to reimpose the naval blockade?
I don't find that with him. And I mean, I don't want to upset him, but everything I've done with President Putin has been okay. It's been good. He's going to say, oh, but I would expect you to say that, but that's good. I don't think anything's going to be broken. And we're going to do a security guarantee in case it is. But with Iran, 47 years, this should have been done by another president a long time ago, or somebody else, another country. But they got stronger and stronger, and now they're weak.
Are you going to reimpose the naval blockade on Iranian
knocked out
ports?
159 ships in 1 week. That's good even for you, right? 159. Their entire navy is at the bottom of the sea. And now they have little boats, little tiny boats that go around. And we knocked about 28 of them out last night with the same weapon we use for the drug people. You know, drugs are down, by the way. Drugs.
Slide Park with a phone. Thank you.
Meaning, nobody wants to get into those boats and take drugs into. They're down 97%, and we're using the same thing for the mine boats. You know, they like to drop mines in, and we hit a lot of them last night, like 28. We knocked out 28 boats last night, little ones. That's all they have is little ones.
Are you going to try to take out more tonight?
Will we go tonight? You know, normally I wouldn't tell you. But you know what? There's not a thing they can do about it. So the answer is probably.
President Trump.
Terrible military strategy. He just said he's going tonight. Yeah, they deserve it.
President Trump, what is the effectiveness of last night's attack? What message does that send to what's left of the Iranian
Which attack are you talking about?
The attack that you guys had on Iran last night. The strikes last night?
I think it has a tremendous impact. Well, first of all, we took out additional, you know, they were trying to rebuild their radar, and they had about 60% built. Now they have to start all over again. Look, we're not attacking at the highest level. The highest level are the bridges, which we can knock down. I would say in one day we knocked down every single bridge in Iran. There's not a thing they can do about it. Their electric manufacturing facilities, right? Their electric plants where they make their electricity there. We will, if we have to, we'll take them out. I don't want to do that, but if we have to, we'll take them out. They have desalinization plants. We'll take them out if we have to. I hate to do that. That's probably the one I would like not to do least. We attacked Carg Island last night. We knocked out a piece. I said, don't touch the oil, because maybe we'll take over Carg Island. You know, we may take over Carg Island. There's not a thing they can do about it. But I said, don't hit the pipes. Just hit everything else. And they hit it. They may hit it again tonight. So, you know, as per your question, normally I'm not that way, but they really deserve it because they're saying they want to make a deal, but they don't. You know, they asked for a timeout. They wanted to go to the funeral of Khomeini, and I said, give it to them. And they start shooting missiles. I mean, it was the craziest thing. Now, we did kill him, you know, so I guess you have to look at it that way, but the funeral took place. And they wanted to have a period of time. And they also asked that we not kill them. And we said, we're not going to kill you. They were worried we'd kill them during the funeral. I mean, if you can believe it, what a crazy... Did you ever think I'd be doing this for a living? Marco, did anybody ever think I'm doing... Maybe Pete, but this wasn't supposed to be for me. Pete loved this stuff from day one. But they said to us, please don't kill us during the funeral. I said, I won't. And we didn't do anything. In fact, we made it safe for them, actually. And what happens? They try and knock out two ships, the Saudi and I guess Kuwait, right? Kuwaiti? Oh, no, Qatari. In addition, really three.
Three, yes, sir.
So you had 3 of them. And they're just, I don't know. I just don't know with them. A lot of people say they're very dishonorable people and they can't keep a deal. So we'll see. Now, as to whether or not Steve Witkoff, Jared, and JD and everybody working on that will talk, I guess they could talk, but I'm not seeing it with them, with the people. My whole life is deals. I don't see it. I don't see it with them.
Well,
and there may be a big attack, and it'll knock out a lot of stuff. We don't knock out nothing. We knock out a lot. Pete, do you want to tell them about last night?
Yes, sir. Last night, as you said, a lot of
Thank you, Alan, for the $5. I really appreciate it.
Harass shipping with, so that was a big part of what we targeted. Underground facilities where they were storing drones or missiles, coastal defense sites, radar sites, surveillance sites, anything used to harass shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. So anything they thought they had rebuilt or capability they were using was a target last night. And tonight, if we need to, on your order, Mr. President, we will hit even more and even deeper, because that's the consequence.
And we may put down the blockade. We may put it back, the blockade. And it'll only be a blockade for Iran. Anybody else can have whatever they want. Now, of course, they'll drop some mines if they can, if they can do it. But it's hard because we're taking out those little boats now with the same weapon we used to take out the drug lords and the boats coming in by sea. Think of it, 97%. For years, we had fentanyl and all the other drugs coming in from different countries, including Venezuela. And it was, they'd arrest them, they'd bring them to a court, they'd be released, and they'd be back on another boat the next. 97%. What was done in the past had no impact. 97% drugs down coming in by sea. And now we're going to start doing it by land. The land is easy when we had to do sea first. And nobody, I think the 3% of the people that still do that, I think they're the bravest people in the world. We should probably give them a medal for bravery. Because and we're using the same exact missile to take out the mine drop. They call them mine droppers. But we have mine sweepers, and one of the things that came up today is that European nations, the NATO group, they're sending mine sweepers. We don't need them now. We have pretty much the mines that cleared up, but they'll probably drop some more. They're evil people. They're sick people. They're mentally disturbed people. And it should have been done 47 years ago. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
This way, please.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you guys. Keep moving. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
That was an awesome presser. Let me unpack some of this for those of you that have heard my spiel. You're going to hear it again. For those of you who haven't, sit back and settle in. So let's talk about Ukraine, what's been going on there. This part of the story actually started back in 2012 when the former president of Ukraine declined the IMF loan guarantee. That's the famous Victoria Nuland soundbite that had been leaked talking about how they were really angry and that they had decided to start a civil war. And we actually spent $5 billion of our tax dollars to do just that. And we sent in snipers to kill people on both sides to start a civil war, which did start in February of 2013. Ended up with the president leaving office, going to Russia. New president, U.S. installed, is Poroshenko, worked with Biden, as you know. We now have a situation where Poroshenko's cabinet was 100% Nazis. And immediately they started going after the southeastern part of Ukraine. They first banned the Russian language, which the eastern and southeastern part of Ukraine is pretty much all Russian language. And then they banned the Russian Orthodox religion, and they started targeting and attacking the civilians. One of the stories that came out of Sterostopol, which is the big steel plant, when Russia surrounded it, they refused to give it up to the last man, actually. But one of the stories that came out is that people would go missing to the underground part of that steel plant. And Russia themselves, when they took over Odessa has a BSL-4 lab, or BSL-3 lab, but that when they took over that lab, they got the documents that proved that they were doing gain-of-function research in Ukraine. And I detailed on my channel, talked about it many times, about the bat program, where they fed bats infected mosquitoes and ticks. And then they started a, quote, bat program in Kyiv so that people wouldn't be afraid of bats, and they had children handling said bats. So they were doing this all along. And then obviously testing their gain of function on the Ukrainian people down in the southeastern part. It sent Putin to the G8. At the time, it was the G8. He has the infamous conversation with Merkel saying, stop killing the Donbass people. And in response, he got kicked out of the G8, which is why it's now the G7. Russia used to be a part of it. That civil war has been going on all along, but it was reaching a point where it was so deadly that Putin decided to do what he called a special operation, and his main goal was to denazify Ukraine. So you had Azov, Dnipro, and a few others down in southeastern Ukraine. That was their big hold. These are the same Nazis that were a part of some of the most atrocious killing in Poland and what is now Ukraine. When communism took over Russia, after the Russian Revolution, when communism took over, some of the worst war atrocities, but they were never held to account in the famous Nuremberg trials. And so Putin now is being the heavyweight, the face of denazifying, and of course they had to make him look bad. But I've always questioned, because there were things that were done before that special operation began that make you really take a step back as to what the media has been telling you. Number one, Putin signed a deal with the Ukrainian military to protect the nuclear power plants. One of the things that I always found interesting is one of the plants on the list was Chernobyl, which of course was not a nuclear power plant anymore. And many people over the years have suspected that Chernobyl was a sabotage effort. So we'll have to wait and see what news comes out about that. What's funny is people quickly forget things. Remember the infamous phone call between Trump and Zelensky in July of 2019? It's the genesis of the first impeachment. Zelensky was speaking English. During this entire special operation, Zelensky suddenly needed a translator because he didn't speak English. And now, lately, he's speaking English again. When do you stop and say, we've been watching a movie? And the movie is about something other than Russia versus Ukraine. And so that what it does is it kind of gives some oomph, if you will, into showing that the Ukraine story was never about Russia attacking or trying to take Ukraine, because that is not their interest. But that the larger story of denazification is likely the more true story, number one. Number two, one of the big things we found with Ukraine is it was a huge money laundering pit. Ukraine being one of the more corrupt countries on the planet, it had all of the things going on. Now I'm going to take you back again to the 2019 phone call where it was revealed that the infamous laptop and server were in Ukraine. And so I've done a lot of digging on this over the years rather than go through that whole story again today. If anybody's got questions, come into the chat room, ask them, and I will be glad to fill in the blanks. But what we're dealing with is something much larger, much more insidious, much more dangerous, very dark, good versus evil kind of thing that's taken over the world. Another thing I want to remind everybody, I know we're all focused on City of London and Brussels, and yes, they have been an issue because of the sticky power of Brussels with their globalist rules and using the financial plumbing of City of London to finance to make sure countries bend the knee. They don't get any of their foreign funding unless they do as Brussels says. So yeah, you got an issue there. But something happened in 2012 that should already poke holes into just how strong that is today. And that's when the LIBOR scandal was revealed. LIBOR is how the interest rates were determined. It's from the shadow banking network. City of London was setting the interest rates. And what they found out, the LIBOR scandal revealed the City of London was manipulating those interest rates. And the result of that is now what we're working under is SOFR, S-O-F-R. You can look it up. SOFR completed, the transition from LIBOR to SOFR completed in 2023, where the U.S. now sets the interest rates. Nobody else does. So that's already weakened the shadow banking system of the City of London. So why is it still important? Because all of these illicit networks said, what a cool idea. And they mirrored that same plumbing using the offshored systems that the City of London set up to set up their own illicit shadow funding. This is how we found out about Zanjani, who was also exposed in 2012. He's the guy that largely was funding, through his illicit activity, he was funding the IRGC. You also find out that you've got other illicit networks doing the same exact thing. One of them is an oil mogul. Another one is making sure the money changes. The illicit networks controlled upwards of 70%, 70 or was it 60% of the Iranian economy. So they held a lot of sway as to what the Iranian government was required to do. Let's go back again to the communist story. Back in 2024, Dan Scavino put a video out on his Twitter page, his X page, and it was Trump leaving Trump Tower, heading to the courts, and he's waving to people across the street in support of Trump as he was heading to the court. And Dan Scavino was using a piece of music from an album called Prisons. It was a particularly violent video that was produced in the Netherlands. But the exact song they used comes from track 23. Can't mistake that. Track 23 being pain. Now comes the pain, judgment. But it's called Soldiers of Fortune. Soldiers of Fortune are groups of all these illicit guys. So you got the cartels, you got these illicit networks, you got the Nazis. What they did is they realized that they had become the target, so they started joining forces to protect themselves and each other. And of course, in prisons, they don't win. You know, obviously, it all falls apart. But I found it interesting that Dan Scavino would choose that piece of music to talk to Trump going to court over the E.G. Carroll case. So I'm just pointing out that as Trump is being arrested over and over and over again, that there was another action going on. And we know that, and in fact, it should be painfully obvious, it isn't crazy anymore to talk about the communist apparatchik here in the United States. For example, Charlie Kirk's murder, Pink Pistols was heavily involved. The person that was heading up the Utah branch of Pink Pistols was actually from Hamas. And we've got that all documented. So when you're talking about these global communists, it's important to understand something very important to understand is that people tended, and we're seeing it play out right now in the media, and I'll show you that in a little bit, but people tend to belly up with those that'll further their own agenda with the idea that hopefully they can control it. Well, it's proven that's not true. The communists have taken over. So I had mentioned to Alan, look up Trotsky versus Lenin, and you quickly figure out the story of what this global communist movement is. Trotsky, like Lenin, thought the Marxist theory was a great theory. Lenin believed it was good for Russia. Trotsky believed it was good for the world. Lenin won. Trotsky was exiled. And where did he come? To the U.S. And he worked heavily out of Manhattan, by the way, with the globalist communists here in Manhattan before he left for Mexico. He was killed in Mexico with a nice pick to the eye, go figure. So who was he working with here? Well, at the time, it was the Socialist Party of America. Who are they today? Democrat Socialists of America. Hopefully you're now starting to see these dots connect as to what's really going on. What are your thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts? And that was, what? Almost 100 years of history in 4 minutes. Not bad, huh? So one of the things to remember while I wait for anybody with any comments, because I hope somebody has comments, it's important to put down the old story of who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. The bad guys are not in front of a camera. They're working behind the scenes. Your Tom Steyers who are funding it. Your Hans-Borg Weiss who's funding it. Your Neville Roy Singham who's funding it. What are they funding? They're funding a global takeover of governments so that we have Trotsky's vision come to realization. And that is a global top-down communist movement. And if you're going to understand what's coming out, and a lot is, it's going to be a very active week. By the way, today is July 8th. If you go look through the Q posts, there's a great delta for today where it's a picture of Trump saying, "My turn." And Q responding with "sweet dreams." So remember, Nassim Dorma, no one sleeps tonight. It's time for them to go to sleep. So the good guy, bad guy dynamic is so hard for people to get past. Yeah, I agree with that, Dar family. That is very true. People are struggling to get past that whole dynamic. I can't understand it. I question it all the time. It doesn't make sense to me. At some point, the dots don't connect. And if you're going to be intuitively and intellectually honest, you have to admit that at some point. So, like Danny just said in my Telegram channel, watch the story, not the players. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, it is, Alan. A Satanism death ritual. Yes. Thank you, Lulu, for the $20 gift. I appreciate that. And I'm always happy to share my digs because I get excited about the stuff I find. I really do. I'm going to take us on to a next story. You notice he was talking about communism in the story. This takes us right up to Graham Plattner. As you know, Graham Plattner is kind of suffering. And right now, the Democrats are trying to get him to leave. They're going to tell you it's because of the sexual abuse. Well, it's not the first time we've heard this. What's really going on? It's not the sexual abuse. What it is the Democrats got caught with their pants down. They need him gone. They need him gone bad. And he's having a hard time going. So here's please check the sound. Make sure, because I want to play this. This is an 11-minute video. I'm not really a fan of Carlin, but she does do good videos on communism because she herself used to be one. So she infiltrated a meeting where they're talking about what their plan is. And this is that oh shit moment for the domestic communists, if you will. So I'm going to start this video. Let me know. It's not quite 11 minutes long.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker of the night, Satya, who's a nurse and a PSL organizer based in Atlanta.
A foundational step in the socialist reconstruction of society would be the creation of a new constitution. The current U.S. Constitution was drafted by the U.S. slave-owning class, and it enshrines the rights of capital. But the new constitution would enshrine and expand the rights of the working class. And millions of people will participate in constitutional conventions or popular constituent assemblies to draft and adopt this new constitution, unleashing a creative and collective process, which is far more democratic and participatory than our current system. Those of us who were long denied a voice in the political system would shape the new constitution. And the U.S. Constitution leaves
I love you too. Pigs on the wing. Thank you for the gold pills. 1,717 of them.
Housing to the capitalist market, meaning in the hands of the billionaires, the Wall Street bankers, and the landlords. But these would be guaranteed rights in a socialist constitution. All the big corporations, the 500 biggest companies that produce 2/3 of this country's GDP would be brought under people's control. They would be nationalized. The new socialist government will take possession of all the existing capitalist banks and create one people's development bank. In a socialist government, holding elected office of any legislative body would not be a full-time job. There would be no professional politicians. Government and civil servants will earn the salary of a skilled worker. And lifetime judicial appointments will be dissolved. The Electoral College would be abolished. The popular vote, one person, one vote, would be implemented. And mass organizations like unions, tenant organizations, cooperatives, youth groups will be empowered and be given legal recognition. So using centralism and a widening and grassroots democracy, people who have been neglected and left out will be brought into the decision-making process of the new government. More than 80% of the US population lives in urban centers, but urban populations are widely underrepresented in federal and state bodies, and this would change. The House of Representatives could be replaced with the National People's Assembly that would not only be made up of delegates elected from local election districts, but would also include delegates from the many mass organizations of millions of workers, students, and more. And the Senate could be replaced by the Assembly of Oppressed Nations to correct the historic injustices imposed on the indigenous peoples and the nation and the Black nation. This Assembly of Oppressed Nations will consist of delegates from oppressed nationalities and peoples. And one of the biggest misconceptions about a socialist government is seeing it as a service provider and the people as passive recipients of services. This is false and wrong. The reorganization of society, including the transition of society to green technology and renewable energy, will be carried out by the people themselves. Mass organizations will have a central role in a socialist society. These voluntary-based organizations will be involved in the day-to-day management of the affairs of society. In that sense, the executive power of socialist society is in the hands of the people. We carry out the decisions that we make. Real democracy requires the full participation of the people in making and implementing the decisions. Capitalist democracy is limited to voting at the ballot box every 2 to 4 years for the next representative of the capitalist system. But socialism expands democracy to the participation of millions of workers, youth, all sectors in actually running society. And socialist revolutions over the last century took place in countries that had to overcome colonial underdevelopment, or societies that were in the early stages of capitalist development. But today, the US is an advanced capitalist economy. So the material conditions exist already in the US to transition immediately to socialism.
Next, I'm going to introduce our second speaker of the day, which is going to be Natalie. Natalie is a Central Committee member of the PSL and the Vice President of Substitutes with UESF, the United Educators of San Francisco. So give a warm welcome to Natalie.
Did you catch that? United Educators of San Francisco? You're talking about the teachers' unions here.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be with you this evening. I'm so excited to be talking about socialism at this moment, particular moment in our history, and also in the labor movement itself. I'm here in Denver getting ready for the National Education Association Representative Assembly. Socialism experiences an exciting expansion of its popularity, and as we think about what we're fighting for, is very, very, very important for us to think about how we will win socialism, because we are fighting for a vision of a different society, armed with an analysis of the current one, of the capitalist system, with its contradictions, its inherent exploitation and oppression. And we have a collective commitment to replacing it. We cannot be satisfied with a reform status quo. It will require a massive movement for socialism and the adoption of socialist ideas across the country to win a new system, which is why the popularity in increasing is so exciting. But our rich history of struggle also shows that the capitalist system itself will adapt and adopt new methods to survive, and will never concede to fully not be exploitative or oppressive. A revolution is necessary. It is necessary to replace capitalism with a socialist society. And we must build the movements that are necessary in order to do that. And I think those of us who are socialists have an important role to play, like we did in history, in how, in all of the different places that we're in all of our workplaces and our neighborhoods, our schools, wherever we are, that we can contribute to the expansion of the struggle and that we can play a role.
Can socialism and democracy coexist? What is the difference between revolutionary socialism that the PSL supports and what is frequently called democratic socialism? So I think we started to touch on these questions, but I want to hear from our panelists. What are your thoughts?
So when we say a revolution, what does that actually mean? So revolution is a process that's smashing the old state and it's creating a new state. And, you know, in the history of the US, there was the first Reconstruction, you know, happened after the Civil War, which was actually a social revolution because it transformed property relations inside the US. It ended slavery. And then comes the second Reconstruction, which is the Civil Rights era, which was a political revolution because it tore down the structures of apartheid, but the economic system still remains in place. So we have an unfinished revolutionary process in this country. And so there is a need for a third Reconstruction, which we are arguing has to be a socialist Reconstruction, which will actually have to change property relations and the economic foundations from capitalism to a socialist foundation.
In differentiating democratic socialism from revolutionary socialism, which Satya has done, there is also, I think it's very important for us to recognize the possibility and necessity, so the actuality of having a revolution in the United States. And I think that it is, you know, it can be very, very hard for us when we're living in a society that is, you know, so deeply challenged in so many ways. There's so many contradictions, millions and millions of workers voting for someone like Trump, who is, you know, a wealthy Nepo baby. I mean, like who has appealed to sort of the most basis and disgusting racism and sexism in our society in order to win over a section of workers to vote against their interests. You know, I think it can be hard to sort of see through that and think, well, will we ever be able to have a revolution in the United States? And I do think revolutionary socialists, our answer is yes. And that is a differentiation. I have been active in my union since I became an educator in 2007. I think, you know, I do now serve as an officer of our union and consider myself to be part of a labor movement that has been doing a lot of great work and also needs to do a lot more. And I think that it's on us as socialists and as communists, as revolutionaries, to be deeply involved in what, you know, workers organizing in the workplace. And for us as educators, we're not at the point of production, but we have a political role to play right now in the struggle for democracy, the struggle to defend public education, and to, I think, be part and parcel of those struggles as we seek to build a consciousness that goes beyond the consciousness of the union, the consciousness of our class, in rightly understanding who the bosses are and how they operate in society, but towards socialist consciousness. And I think that's a very important task right now.
Okay, I want to talk about this for a few minutes. Because one of the things that I've been noting...
drives me nuts.
Say
It
that
drives
again?
me nuts.
Why does it
This
drive you
drives me
nuts? Let them expose themselves. Don't let it get to you.
I know. When I hear somebody saying revolutionary communist and say democracy in the same sentence,
There's no
I want
such
to straight
thing.
punch them.
I know.
I know that.
So let me point out something. Let me point out something, because we were starting to talk about Graham Plattner, and I'm going to show you a video. But how do you take this down? One of the things I've been noticing that the Trump administration's been doing, excuse me, I got the hiccups, is they're literally weaponizing compliance. So the left is going freaking out. They're weaponizing the DOJ. Well, yeah, because if you're not following through with the rule of law, you're going to come up on an indictment. Now, there's recent proof of this. So I wanted to point that out, because these yahoos that are talking about the wonders of socialism are getting funding, and that funding is being tracked, traced, and indicted as we speak. And so there's been a couple of great things, and this is part of the dig that I didn't get to on Monday, but I will be finishing with Sean on Thursday night, showing you just how this is all coming together. All these groups are coming together with the sole purpose of trying to create an inflection point that turns the country communist. And the Trump administration isn't sitting by watching it happen with their thumbs in their butt. They're actually doing something very, very important, and it's working. So I'm just going to point that out. So let me finish with Graham Plattner before we move on, because this is a political scientist for the left, and they're talking about, it's 39 seconds, they're talking about Graham Plattner.
Plattner stayed in the race. I think it would be extremely difficult to beat Susan Collins. I think there already were a number of people who were feeling like maybe they couldn't support him after the abuse allegations. They might not have voted for Susan Collins, but they might have sat it out instead. And I just don't think that he's going to have a path forward. His numbers in polling went down significantly after the sexting and the initial abuse story.
And it doesn't look like he will, based on the video that he put out.
Okay, so where is she going with this? Graham Plattner put out that he's taking some time to reflectively think about where he's going. And I have to laugh. So Graham Plattner, very noted communist. I'm also going to point out something else, too. The Socialist Party of America became the Democrat Socialists of America. They have a whopping 100,000 people in their midst. The group that they're talking about here, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, is actually a piece of, or stems from, the Democrat Socialists of America. We're not talking a whole lot of adherents, but we are talking about people that put themselves in position of influence, mostly through the college and secondary school situation. So they're educators in colleges, they're educators in the high schools, and they're working on, and have always been working on, trying to turn our kids, which largely has worked, because a lot of our kids think socialism's just fine. But they can't do those lofty plans that they just mentioned without the funding. And so we're looking at something a little bit different here when you start talking about Graham Plattner suddenly stepping out. So what's the problem for the Democrats? Well, they thought they could control the communist factions of their party. And this is Charlie Hurt saying, no, not really. Listen to this one.
The inmates have taken over the asylum.
Absolutely.
As you point out, Graham Plattner holds all the cards. He is in charge right now. And Democrats, I'm sorry, but Democrat leaders have no one to blame but themselves. Right. They created this monster. They allowed this monster to gain this power, and now they're left with all the problems. Here's the other thing that I think is crucial here, is that Graham Plattner I don't think Democrats are turning on him because of all of these problems. We have seen these problems for months. The reason they're turning on Plattner right now is because polling shows that he can no longer beat Susan Collins. That is the only reason they're going after him right now.
So isn't it cool how Susan Collins is assuring her reelection? So pointing out the obvious here. Democrats thought they could control the communists. They can't. I've talked about this many times where I took note when Nancy Pelosi took back the gavel in 2019. That was January when the new Congress came in. She was made speaker again, even though many in the Democrat Party didn't want her as speaker. The whole month of December, Trump had been pushing for her to remain speaker, to take back the gavel. She did. She became speaker, and the party went decidedly left. I mean, hard left. We were immediately inundated with stories about the squad. So this is a party that is clinging to everything they can to make sure that they could keep the vote. My opinion is they believe that they could control this faction because it's not that large. And they're finding out this year, no, I don't think we can control the faction. It is notable, though, where are these people winning? They're winning in largely urban centers. So a lot of money right now on both parties is being spent in suburbia. Why? Because they got to get people off their butts and go vote. Try to break this down. So I really think that this story is what we're going to be seeing play out through the rest right up till November. And I had said to Sean, it reminds me of when Q said to us, did you fill out your brackets? Remember March Madness? March Madness turned out those brackets, we had to look at Trump's tweets. We had to fill out the brackets for March Madness, and it came down to communism versus a republic. So I'm just pointing out this is our story for today. So I am told, this is from Paul Sperry, I am told Special Prosecutor DeGeneva's team has obtained startling new evidence exposing 2016 election interference by non-Russian foreign entities, including Ukraine and the UK. DeGeneva has onboarded a federal investigator to his office to focus on Ukraine. I'm going to point out something obvious here, guys. 2016, Zelensky wasn't in office. Are we starting to see the picture? This is before Zelensky. And Zelensky's been spending a lot of time with Trump on the sidelines. So we'll see where this goes, but keep that in mind because what you're seeing now is another thing happen. And I pointed this out the other day on the show that DeGeneva, instead of looking at this massive conspiracy case, they've now broken it apart into smaller conspiracy cases, which has the communists, the Democrat side, has them freaking out. And you've seen all of them, to include Mark Elias, damn near crying on air because of it, because they just realized the target just got put on their back. So I will show you more of that on Thursday night when I go through that part of the deck. Here is Harmeet Dillon, her interesting state.
So first of all,
she's talking about sending monitors out. Listen to this one.
So first of all, this is for the upcoming primary elections this month and next month. We have, some funds that we use for this purpose. And so the Department of Justice, like it has in, Republican and Democrat administrations in the past, is sending election monitors to places where there have been problems with the integrity of elections. For example, where poll workers made mistakes in giving people access or didn't let people come in, or they used the wrong poll book, or they didn't have the ballots, correct ballots for that jurisdiction. So people were denied the right to vote, or their language access issues that are mandated by federal law. So I'm going to read from this list here. So in 2024, we monitored 27 primary elections. In 2022, under the prior administration, the department monitored 9 primary elections. In this primary season, we're monitoring 15 jurisdictions at least in 6 states, and they include Arizona, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Virginia. And the cities and counties that we're monitoring are, some significant ones. They include Boston, Maricopa, Fairfax County, Detroit, Ramsey, Prince William, Lansing, East Lansing, Hennepin County, Minnesota, New Bedford and Nashua in Massachusetts, Manchester, and then back in Arizona again, Apache and Pima counties. And I've been a volunteer and a professional election lawyer in prior years and prior cycles. And some of these jurisdictions are jurisdictions where, you know, I've got personal knowledge of there being problems in the past. And so I think it should be a welcome sign for voters in all jurisdictions that we have an eye on things, as well as, of course, private parties and you know, the political parties can also come in and do that, and they should. The more eyes on elections, in my opinion, the better, because the more people will be confident in the outcome of those elections, and we all want that as Americans. So first,
I want to point out Prince William County, Fairfax County, are both in Virginia. Back in 2022, right before the election, the mid-year, the mid-cycle, the registrar for Prince William County was arrested for election fraud. Of course, it got washed under the carpet. The indictment was dropped, but it's been well known that these two counties, Fairfax and Prince William, which are next door to each other in Northern Virginia, have huge election fraud issues. So I was really pleased to hear that list come out. I can guarantee you they're watching for very specific things, which I think is a good thing. So keep that in mind as we come up onto the election. As we're disrupting the money, we're also disrupting the avenues that they've used in the past. And like I said, 2016 is pre-Zelensky, and we're talking about election fraud in Ukraine. I think that's interesting, don't you? Considering we're wondering where the server is. Now, this is my favorite part of the day. Now that we're getting close to ending the videos. Isn't that a pretty gold tie that Trump is wearing? Don't you think?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's got red dots. Did you notice that? Do you know what that symbolism is?
I thought it was negotiation. But
So, no, red was, let's just start with the gold. It's a symbolism of luxury and power, right? Gold.
right.
Red dots are, red typically is confidence, approachability, strength.
He's got him.
Okay, so let me quickly go through this. Do I have the video ready? Yes, let me do that.
100, I told this story yesterday, we had 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan.
Say what? Say what? Did you catch that?
They were shot at the aircraft carrier.
They were shot at the aircraft carrier. So let me tell you some history. 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan. So 1998, it was the Japanese yen was tanking, and it was called the 1998 currency intervention. It was coordinated by the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Bank of Japan to kind of stabilize the Japanese yen. And they brought the level down. It's called the 111 intervention, by the way. So they brought down the Japanese yen, made it more stable to where it was 111.11 yens per dollar. So they stabilized it. What happened, this is really exciting. What happened was the speculators were tanking the yen. Not hard to think about when you think of Soros telling you about how he was the person behind tanking the British currency. So tanking the yen was a big deal by speculators. The intervention, the manipulation that the Treasury took at the time through the Federal Reserve, upended what the speculators were doing. Kind of shot them in the foot right away. So by October, with that intervention, they hit the 111, which is now a historic mark. So catching it, 111 missiles fired from the Islamic Republic of Japan. That's a signal when you're looking at a gold tie with confidence all through it. So when you start going down this, and I just said add this to the thread because I'd already done the research, the action, Japan spent billions unilaterally in April 98, but the market speculators overwhelmed them. So we jumped in and we helped manipulate it. And the Fed aggressively sold billions of dollars to forcibly buy up the yen. The aftermath, the speculators crashed. Sudden joint move caught short sellers off guard, forcing them to exit their trades. And what did they end up doing? Buying the yen to cover their debt. So the baseline, what they call the 111 baseline, it was a massive market reversal that happened then. Well, something interesting is happening because U.S. Treasury is not going to manipulate. Scott Bessent put out his own rules back in April saying we're not going to manipulate the dollar. So what are they going to do? They're going to prioritize domestic bond market stability and enforce America First trade. Well, that's interesting. How are you going to do that? Well, you're actually going to encourage domestic purchase of the bonds that Japan is forced to dump to stabilize their own currency. So how do you do that, you may ask? If we're not buying them now, what are you going to do? This is where the Clarity Act comes in. The Clarity Act becomes that vehicle that now makes it instant liquidity into our own market, and we will buy those up. And so it's a liquidity tool. And I'm saying add this to the chat because the consultations that they're working on right now is maintaining that monitoring, the strict monitoring between Japan and the U.S., what's going on. And because the Treasury overhauled their foreign exchange policy report saying, we're not going to manipulate anymore, now we got to have another way to handle that. So what are those swap lines? Well, that's where, like I said, the Clarity Act comes in. So backing the digital dollar, top stablecoin issuers such as Circle back their digital currencies by purchasing U.S. treasuries. That's what's backing most of these stablecoins. So when you pass the Clarity Act, you're giving the legal license for them to buy up those bonds, right, that are being dumped. Are we seeing our future? Isn't that beautiful? What do you guys think? Nobody has anything to say.
I think it's what we've been waiting for.
Yeah, it's time for it to come in.
So basically,
Alan,
I remember you saying
I'm sorry
before that we were waiting for the right moment in order to pass this act, that something would have to happen in order to trigger it to get them off their butts and get it done, right?
Yes, and right now the Japanese yen is up about 160 something per dollar. So it's tanking, right? The Japanese yen is weak. So what is Japan has no choice. They've got to raise interest rates, and they're dumping U.S. bonds because they're now dead weight on their books. So they're going to dump those bonds. What do you do with the bonds that are dumped? That's our debt was being financed. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to now make it a digital purchase so that now you can put the U.S. debt on the blockchain, watch it, and 2, you can pay off that debt using that blockchain. What is a stable coin? That's what everything is going to be run with, right? Stable coins. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So the biggest hurdle in passing the bill this month, they're saying it's a turf war. If we're that close to an economic crisis, that close, you tell the banks to STFU, you get Congress to pass the bill, we get this show on the road, and those of us that have been very carefully covering our backsides with XRP and RLUSD or Flare or any of the other stable coins, you can now sit back and say, my time has come, and I was at the train station when the train pulled in. How's that?
It's a never before moment.
Right.
I'm telling you, I'll never forget it from the very start that you started explaining all of this. Mongo and Celestial, God bless them, because we're so far ahead of the curve.
Thumper Rose, the Trump accounts and the bonds you're talking about, those are 2 different things. I don't know if the Trump accounts allow bond purchases. So what I was
They're pretty
showing
much Wall
you
Street.
was a gold tie with red dots talking about 111 missiles shot from Japan. I showed you the history of the 111 intervention and what that means going forward. That was a clear signal to get the Clarity Act passed. You guys catch it? Do you guys get it? I'm so excited. I'm beyond excited.
I'm so damn ready. We've been waiting so long. Some of you folks been waiting really long on your XRP.
Right? So I had said, we don't need, if the Clarity Act is passed, you don't need the Federal Reserve to do anything. They don't have to make their balance sheet bigger. They don't have to start printing money. You pass the Clarity Act, all that bond money travels in. It becomes instant liquidity in the digital space. I think it's beautiful and painless. And who gets caught with their pants down? The very same speculators that got caught with their pants down with the 1883 panic. Remember that when Trump talked about the panic of 1873? Here we are. We're here. And we're getting a 2008 style crisis that's going to force the Clarity Act through, which is what I've been saying for years.
Which takes the dark side out of managing the money.
So for anybody that hasn't purchased XRP, right now it's down to somewhere around $1.10, I think, or under $1.10. If you don't know how to do it, join my Telegram channel, which the link I can provide you. If you join the Telegram channel, we are happy to help you. Invite links. Hold on. Copy link. We are happy to help you get set up. Just know the window's closing fast. Once the Clarity Act is passed, you're going to have a very, very little time to get yourself set up. So take your $25 or whatever you can afford and just get in there, because it will exponentially increase. It'll be one of the best deals you've made. And of course, this is not financial advice. I'm a speculator just like you. But I did a lot of research. And I stayed at a hotel once.
XRP comes through. We'll have enough money to meet at a hotel.
Yes. So
it would be a fine party.
I wanted to show something, and I'm not going to read the article, although I will drop the link for the chats. There's a video in here. I wanted to go through the video. Okay, let me grab the link, drop it for everybody. Of course, we've got Tucker starting it. Was this the one? He goes through a bunch of videos, vaccines, the media, corruption, and truth. And he's talking about before Big Pharma, and I know when they did it, Big Pharma really bought the media starting in about 2016, I think, when all every other commercial on the news was a drug commercial. This is Tucker Carlson talking about the media.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Sometimes you wonder just how filthy and dishonest our news media are. You'll be in the shower and you'll think they're bad, but how bad are they? Well, here's one measure of their badness. You can try this at home. Ask yourself, is any news organization you know of so corrupt that it's willing to hurt you on behalf of its biggest advertisers? Anyone who do that is obviously Pablo Escobar level corrupt and should not be trusted. What would that look like? That level of corruption. Well, imagine that the Trump administration had made it mandatory for American citizens to buy MyPillow. That's one of Fox News' biggest advertisers. Imagine the administration declared that if you didn't rush out and buy at least one MyPillow and then at least another booster pillow, you would not be allowed to eat out. You couldn't re-enter your own.
Okay, we don't need to go through that whole 10 minutes. I wanted to play this one. We talked about the possibility of vaccine injuries.
When I was on Fox News and we talked about the possibility of vaccine injuries, it this is back when I first started as an anchor, 2007. You were not allowed. I mean, they would run out to the set to tell you to shut that down if a guest said anything. This is back in the Jenny McCarthy days when she first started raising questions. And I remember her quote, too many shots too soon. She wasn't saying there should be no vaccines. She said too many too soon. And I remember them telling me, like, you have to push back on that, or they were going to get in trouble. And of course, half of Fox's advertising comes from Big Pharma. Like, it takes a while for you to start to see these connections, but eventually, and I said this to Bobby, and he said the same back to me. I had my kids all vaccinated with all the shots. So did he. That doesn't mean that there aren't legitimate questions to be explored and asked around what's in them, how soon we're giving them, and what the cocktail is, including drugs to prevent against STDs when the child's an hour old.
Okay, keep going down. Mass censorship. This is a really good article. I dropped it in my chat earlier today. I don't know how long this one is. No, I'm not going to play it. But you've got the link. What this person did is go back through years. They went through years of advertising to show that the media used to talk about vaccine injuries. Then it got shut down. The reason why I brought it up is the lab leak payback has begun. What's going on? Everybody that's been involved with gain of function in the COVID origins, they're being hit with indictments right now. And this is coming out of the Atlantic. The origins of the coronavirus pandemic remain contested. The evidence, of course, this is Atlantic, is incomplete. So if that is so incomplete, explain why they're being hit with indictments, right? Because that's definitely what's going on. And unfortunately, I didn't put it through the Wayback Machine to get it out from under the paywall. They obviously don't want you to read the whole story, but that is the concern right now. So with that, I hope you enjoyed today's show. We did make it through 2 hours, even though I used a half hour to use the presser, because I thought it was perfect. Anybody final thoughts before I end with our last part? Anybody?
I do.
Go ahead.
It's me.
Yes,
So,
you.
I just wanted to point out too that Pete Hegseth also changed his plans. He was going to go to Israel and
Yeah, he was told
didn't do that either. So.
Yeah, he was told he couldn't go to Israel. He headed back instead. Yeah, something's going on. That's why I said, don't forget. Don't forget to say a few extra prayers today. So please do that. Don't know. Can't speculate on what we don't have information on. But there is something up. And no, it isn't so the soldiers can get a look-see because they deserve to see it first. I think they're doing a full sweep. Anybody else have any thoughts? Got 19 people in the Telegram chat. A good time for somebody to speak up. It is your show. And I'm getting an absolute silence from my own chat.
No, Feisty, stop.
Stop, as I used to say, right?
Something else I picked up. Oh, when you were talking about Trump's Air Force One, the new one, we had said something earlier, maybe about the AI on there.
Yes.
The poison pill.
What I was showing you was where he's going in London. It's an MI6 U.S. joint base. And one of the key things that is there is cyber. Signals intelligence, but it's cyber and AI are the skill sets. That's why I pointed it out. Does that help you?
That was troubling to me. Obviously, with everything we've discussed about Anthropic,
right?
And yeah, so I was just kind of very caught unawares, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. I'm glad you found the base and what they do there. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people really, we need to really, really throw up the prayers, because this is the wire time, and he's got to stay safe.
Well, logic is they're not going to go out without a fight. They're going to fight to the bitter end. And if Joe Genova is as far along as it looks like he is, we're looking at stuff getting really hot really fast. Of course, August is supposed to be unseasonably hot, if you recall. So I'm excited on one hand because it really does show that we're closer to the end than most people think. I'm also concerned on the other hand, everybody keep be situationally aware, because it's going to get spicy for a little bit. That said, I've been also watching what the government's been doing to defang this movement that's going on inside this country, the evil that's trying to create all this havoc. They've been doing a lot of work, and like I said, I'll go over it more on Thursday, because my God, that's a show all of its own. But when you see what I've got, when you see what I'm showing you, I think you'll start to understand. It doesn't mean don't worry about the election. It doesn't mean don't worry about Trump. Prayers are always necessary. But I have to tell you, if you have some understanding of both sides, what's going on, the play and the counterplay, then you shouldn't be hiding under your bed. Now you're intellectually informed. You can make wise decisions. So with that, I really want to thank everybody for joining me today. I really do appreciate that. It did go a lot better than normal, right? It went a lot better than normal. So I am going to close out with my favorite outro from Mr. Leota, which he did such a wonderful job on it. I love this song. Sean also gave me a song that I can use. I want to use that as well. I'm looking for it. I've got a couple of them, but this one I will play again. Enjoy, everybody. Have a great day.
Whispers in the static, questions in the fire. The veil is torn and the seeker never tired. Jaws of reason, eyes of flame, unmasking the players in the shadowed game, where the silence breaks, the hidden shakes. She names the unspoken, the world away. For those who believe, no words are required. For those who do not, none will suffice.
Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you later.